record a quick vlog before heading out to the park. I didn't end up finishing uploading, I think it's yesterday's vlog or the day before, I can't remember now. If I've recorded a vlog yesterday, but anyhow, I've got like 50% left of an older vlog to upload, and so I thought I'd head out to the park and maybe upload this as well if I can. I wanted to primarily talk more about writing. Had a bit of a low moment yesterday afternoon, and doing some writing, and I think the low point was that nothing was clear, and I was just feeling really, really lost. And my mind just wasn't functioning at all. It was just, I had two thoughts or two notions of, I almost felt like I understood what it was like, and this may just be my delusions, but my perception was that I sort of understood people who are really unwell, because in that time, it was like everything was kind of scattered and fragmented, and I kind of understood two perspectives. The people who are really unwell and who don't say anything. I kind of understood that because even I'm able to string words together now in this moment, but I can still feel what I'm talking about behind. And it's like you just can't get words to connect almost. Like if I was trying to explain how I was feeling yesterday about my writing, it was just, there's no real way for me to explain it. I don't think I can like try and explain around it, and maybe there'll be some very short notions of accuracy, of deep accuracy to what I'm talking about, but generally I kind of just am only able to talk around certain things, certain emotions and feelings. And so in that moment of despair last night, while I was trying to write, I kind of understood those two spectrums of those who are someone who's unwell and who's trying to voice their unwellness, and it comes out maybe in an aggressive way, in a fragmented way, outbursts, and to somebody who's not experiencing those symptoms, it can be naturally, it can be quite abrasive, and think, God, this person's not making sense. They're just, the only thing you can conclude is that just they're unwell. But in that moment, and I feel it now, I could understand that frustration. So many things are bubbling up, and there's just no way to be heard, really. And the same notion of being completely silent, because the frustration, what can be said when you're not able to really make sense of it. And I'm going to try and delve into that feeling that seems, in this moment, seems really unexplainable. Inexplainable or unexplainable sounds right. Yeah, I guess it felt like, let's say the mind is a bunch of marbles, which is a funny notion because people talk about losing marbles and all that stuff, so maybe I can add some humour to this, and maybe they refer to that as obviously brain neurons and cells. It almost felt like I could see the black space where the marbles, but there was only like two there, or one, or almost like comets, they would come and go So to be like, and there'll be nothing there in between. There'll just be this trying to, it's almost like half a mechanism and it's missing the other half of the mechanism. So it's like almost like starting a car, but is it the alternator, the thing that sparks to make the petrol, and like, so there's only one side of it's working and it's not connecting. And I felt like that was what it was like last night, trying to understand my struggles. And writing, it's not just specifically writing, it's more just when I'm really engaging my mind. And writing is an activity that it requires a certain effort and energy, mental energy, mental functioning as well, to be creative, to put things together, to work the imagination and put it into paper, churn out words. So it's quite a heavy mental sort of functioning writing, especially creative writing. And I think when I talked about those, the marbles and all the comets and things dissolving, where I just couldn't mentally figure out, I was just in pain, but I couldn't to myself explain and affirm what was going on. I think in a roundabout way, this is again a very loose sort of overview. That's the best I can do, but I think I was just really confused and just not knowing what to do. And it just felt, like that feeling like it's only half a mechanism, like I was trying to, turn that key and get something started, to finish a thought or finish a set of thoughts about something. Like for me it was the writing, so some like really big thoughts that were probably there I was having, is like, is this good for me? Am I taxing my brain too much? And there's really like almost really like nitty-gritty thoughts, lots of them that I just couldn't get access to, and they were kind of parts of the jigsaw puzzle to understand how I was feeling or why I was feeling the way I was. But I think the primary feeling was just feeling completely helpless and lost, not knowing what to do. Like should I put in the effort to write, or should I not? And maybe part of this comes into OCD or decision making, and so it's all kind of clustered together, those symptoms going into overdrive. And then there were some thoughts in the bigger view of thinking, is writing healthy for me? Am I taxing my mind too much? Is it worth me doing this? Because I felt like the story I'm writing, I had to really engage my mind to look ahead, to see what was happening, and to kind of work out what was going to happen with the character. And there's the craft of writing as well, which I've talked about before, and I was probably considering, do I have the effort to really dig deep to get access to that craft of, because I don't want to write like a bad story, or a story that I know it's not like the story I'm capable of writing. And then there's thoughts of, should I, is it silly just to have that expectation, because it feels like I'm, I've said this many times about me feeling unwell and being unwell, but because of the loss of perspective, it's hard to know how much of what is accurate. But right now my perception is that I'm probably more unwell than I realise. And is it fair to have that expectation I should be able to engage at a high level? Or when I say high level for me, my a high level in whatever skill set I have in writing, is it fair that I shouldn't or should have access to that because of my health? And I think part of me it makes perfect sense that, well, if you're this unwell or feel this unwell, then of course it's going to affect every area of life. like decision making, thoughts, perspectives, interpreting feelings, and I'm just struggling with that, really. Feels like there's some internal battle going on that's trying to prep me up to continue with the writing and to continue pushing myself at a high level. And then there's another part that says, this is all silly, what are you doing? Then there's another part that's just completely lost. That's like, okay, if I don't write, what the hell am I doing? It's my life feels quite empty and meaningless as it is. And one thing I probably haven't spoken about much, probably hard to admit, is that my sense of being present, my sense of being mindful or in the present moment, to keep things simple, is really diminishing. Or another way to put it is, my mind is going into overdrive now. The unwellness is really, it's sort of completely covering up or interfering with my capacity to be mindful, to be present, and that's really, it's like this big sort of hot ball in my mind that's searing things, but I can't chew it and dissolve it. It's just, I know a lot of these things may not make sense in the big picture, and maybe that's okay, but so I just feel really lost, really. And it's strange because I don't have the perspective of, okay, today's a bad writing day, let's see what tomorrow's like. It feels like I need to know all of the answers now, so I either do writing or I drop it. It feels like there's no room for, okay, maybe you're just really stressed yesterday, but part of that doesn't seem true as well, because it feels like with the consistency of my health, as it's going down this sort of gradient, as I've mentioned before, that doesn't ring true with, okay, maybe tomorrow I'll have a better day, because I don't think it's, for the last months it's not been the case. And the sense of mental clarity, maybe some sprinkles of good caffeine days, is that makes a difference. It kind of gets, it's like almost like rocket fuel for my mind in some ways. It gets things pinging and going, and there's a certain elevated clarity if I was, when I drink caffeine, at times, not all the time. And so I think there's two kind of models that are clashing here. There's the model of wanting to know, okay, I need to know the blueprint of how I live my life now. Do I write? Do I not write? Do I write just for pleasure, and am I able to, drop any expectations of the quality of the writing and potential thoughts of publication or submitting it to an agent? So it feels like I need to know that now, or I need to resolve that now. And then there's the other model that's completely, fragmented and changes its mind, and it's completely unpredictable, and that's the part where I'm kind of using, or I'm living and able to cope. So, sort of living 10 minutes of my life at a time, or at the most, sometimes living a day at a time, if I'm able to expand that. But it feels like there's a clash there between wanting to have a blueprint, okay, which is what I'm going to do for the foreseeable future, but then there's an element of unpredictability, scattered sort of elements, and elements where 1 minute it's at this end of the spectrum, the next minute it's at this end of the spectrum, and I'm just trying to make sense of that, and even this may seem like a really clumsy broad stroke, but it feels like I'm just trying to keep my sanity going, and it feels weird to say that because it's like a real heavy stuff, but maybe I'm at that point. Maybe Maybe it's okay to say that, I don't know. But it's what it feels like anyway. I'm trying to, because right now it feels like my sanity is eroding. Like, as you see this kind of picture, it's like, what it feels like is that the edges are getting blurred, and the picture's getting smaller and smaller, and that sort of honing in is like, life kind of closing in on me, and my mental capacity is closing in on me, and I can no longer, as the days go by, the less I can think in broad ways about life, the more I have to zoom in to life, where previously perhaps in a good time I could think years. It's okay, yeah, this year I can do this, next year I can do that, and then sometimes now it's months. Now it's just the next 5 minutes, really. That's kind of where I'm at in the most extreme way. It's getting harder now to kind of have any trust in intentions for the rest of the day. I can still keep intentions, or form intentions, but I'm aware now that I just can't rely on myself. I can't trust myself, because things just change so quickly, and it's a bit of a scary way to live at the moment. It's a bit of a, and when you try to bring something in, like writing a novel as well, where it's obviously quite a big long-term project, that kind of adds a stress to things. And I don't know where. Feels like I need somebody to bounce this off of. Or maybe some guidance. I don't know if I'm doing more damage, like pushing myself with the writing, and then it feels it's damaging not writing, because it's just, moment to moment. I'm trying to find meaning, trying to find some purpose as well to help my mind sort of keep going and staying alive, and maybe also to counteract what's happening to me mentally, to keep my mind stimulated, to not let it get rigid, and I'm afraid I would just get more and more unwell. I'm not sure me pushing myself writing is making me better, but maybe it's slowing it down, I don't know. But I feel really lost, and maybe an idea for me to do that seems really scary is just to try things out. Like, I'm trying the writing out, I'm just experimenting with that, and maybe I can try and experiment with, let's just watch movies all day and hibernate and see how that goes. Or so I'm trying to find a perspective that fits with me right now, that's healthy, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just right now your only concern is my mental health. Primary concern is my mental health, and everything else is up for experimentation, such as my activities of what I do, and more important, with the writing. Perhaps I can just dip into writing every now and then. Maybe I can live with that, I don't know. Things just seem really sticky, in another kind of description, I guess. So it's hard to, just like, like a ball of dough that's kind of floury and dry, it's malleable, you can kind of sort of play with the shapes and construct things and thoughts. It feels like that's not really clear for me right now, if I'm able to do that. And I think it's difficult with the experimentation of writing, because there's fears that I won't want to go back to writing, and that I would just, I'll once I've let go of it too much. And I know in the past I've done this many times. I've taken breaks from writing. I've dozens of times I've said to myself, okay, I'm giving up writing, it's too much for me, and I've gone back to it. So maybe I need to trust, part of me wants to trust in life or trust in the universe, which can seem like a, what's the word I want to use? New Age, that's the word, the term, the New Age sort of speak, but it's not, for me, it's there's a depth to that. If you kind of park the New Age stuff on the side, I don't speak about it on this space as much. I usually do it in my podcast where I speak about spirituality and things, but with my viewpoint that everything's connected, and there's almost a safety in that. It's hard for me to trust, it's hard for me to trust. It just feels like my mind's so chaotic. I can't just leave it to do what it feels like doing. Not what it feels like doing, but it's almost like leaving a toddler to take care of themselves. Just like, okay, I'm going to leave you for a few hours or a couple of days. You'll manage. And it feels like that with my mind. Things feel so vulnerable and fragile that it just feels like I'm not sure if I can just do things like that, like not sort of go with the flow even more so than I am now. So it just feels, because again it's the two models again. There's a sense of wanting to have some structure and routine and other things, but there's a sense of things are so fragmented that it's hard to do that. And I don't, almost like this, it's like jumping off and not knowing if there's a safety net. So I'm wondering if I can maybe, with the experimentation of, sort of writing when I feel like it, and that itself is difficult to do, because like another thing of last night when writing, I was like, do I want to write right now? And it's just it almost just short circuits my brain. I'm like, I don't know if I do or not. Maybe part of me does. Part of me must be, because I'm here trying to write. But then I'm sure there's a part of me that's in pain, that's perhaps being mentally taxed, and it doesn't want to engage. So it's all very confusing. It feels like I'm going over old ground as well, which is it's just fine. For me, I don't mind if I go over this 100 times in future vlogs. It's just feels like each time it's fresh, because my health's constantly changing, so I kind of have to reevaluate. The lens is changing focus constantly, so it never feels like I know I'm talking about very similar things, and I have done, but there's a new perspective. A new perspective's the right word, but because I'm feeling more unwell, so now I'm kind of measuring it up against that now, and each time that changes, it may require more more sort of checking up on that sort of stuff. But and going through these thoughts, it sort of makes me more unwell. Not just when I'm talking about it, but actually going through that. So that place last night when I was literally sat there in front of my laptop and just sort of paralyzed, thinking, just completely paralyzed, I guess is a good word to use. But there's sort of mental tension battles going on. And it's just really, really tough. It's really tough. And it's taken a toll on me as well. Like last night, it's just that episode itself feels like it's taken a toll on my energy, and it's eroded even more. It feels like my mental health. But it feels like I can't really avoid that, because it's almost part of living. Like each day we're assessing what's coming in our sensory perceptions, our thoughts, our emotions, and it feels like that itself is taxing me. And it's like yeah, and just going back to those kind of two images I had in my head of two, I don't know if it's versions of myself or just two ideas of, or people, I think I've seen it in movies or whatever else, of, or in real life, someone who's deeply unwell and you can't speak or choose not to speak, and those who are deeply unwell and who are, voicing their unwellness, I guess, and it's coming out in dribs and drabs of incoherent speak, and it feels like I'm right there with them. I can really feel that inside of me. It feels like it comes out in a little bit in these vlogs, and where I'm probably, there's times throughout each of my recordings where there's, I'm not making sense, or it's hard to follow my string of thoughts. So yeah, and it's scary because it feels like I'm close to those kind of points, really. I must be, if I deeply feel like I understand and feel what someone like that must be going through or feeling. So that kind of worries me a bit as well. It doesn't feel like there's a way to climb out of this. It feels like I'm on this sort of slope and I'm sliding down, and there's no grip. There's nothing that I can do to stop it. I can try and slow myself down, which is what I feel like I'm doing with, some healthy habits. So like trying to get outside, trying to write, or do something mentally stimulating, like the poker used to be that, but I'm struggling with poker as well a little bit. Part of me, that's part of the motivation of recording this. There's a few motivations I've talked about before, like validation and working things through. Part of it is almost like, I don't want to use the word like evidence, but it's almost like breadcrumbs. Like if I get to a point of really deep unwellness where I'm that person where you can't have a coherent conversation with, whether I'm mute or whether I'm not able to take in conversation and to process, and whether the result of that is me sort of speaking incoherently and having vocal outbursts that don't make sense. And I don't know, if I do get to that point, I don't know what the benefit of this would be, but it makes me feel better that I'm doing this. So anything, I guess, that helps with my health. Just wanted to I really wanted to vlog last night, but I was just really tired, and I'm glad I didn't as well, because it was really close to my bedtime, and I decided let's see if I can record tomorrow and just go to bed. And so I did go to bed at a reasonable time, and in those type of moods, usually it's easy for me to stay up late and to get into myself in a bit more of a state, and try and watch reaction videos or something on YouTube. And thankfully I didn't do that. I did feel just a little bit about my day or my night as well. Overall, I did feel really tired this morning. I had loads of dreams last night. I think lots of dreams about my mum. They were bad. Often they all pretty much are bad dreams. So I don't know if when having lots of dreams, it feels like you don't get as deep sleep when having loads of dreams. So I woke up quite tired and groggy. I did manage to push myself to get groceries, even though it's the weekend and I knew it would be busy. But I managed to get down to the supermarket at a fairly early-ish time. I think it got down by 10:30, I think 10 o'clock, and it was quite busy inside, and I had a bit of a jolt of energy just to rush around and get the things I needed and try and just get out of there. I found it quite triggering there were a lot of people, and it was really hard to navigate. And I found people, this is probably more my perception, but people just seemed really cold, and no one really noticed me as I tried to go through. They were just felt like they were just getting in my way a little bit, or not not being considerate of my space if I'm walking through, and I almost felt like a ghost there, like nobody could see me. People were just kind of walking in my way or standing there, and I think some of them knew I was there as well. And maybe I was getting a bit frustrated because I'm the opposite. Like I'd over apologize, or apologize freely. Sometimes I apologize when I'm getting in the way of somebody. When somebody's getting in the way of me, sometimes a sorry comes out, and I find that a bit. Sometimes I can find that a bit infuriating about myself, and and it feels because I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Where I always try and be. I don't mean this as a good person, but just perhaps out of my anxiety, I always try and be, where possible, considerate of my space. If someone's trying to get by, I do all I can to get out of the way, make space for them. But it feels like none of that was happening, as if I was a ghost. And that was just a bit triggering. But I did well to just kind of get in and out as soon as possible out of there. So another thing hard to admit is I bought a couple of pizza bases, and I bought like a packet of cheese as well. Another thing, and it's been like a week since I had pizza last time. I think it was last Sunday, and I'm just having a real tough time with food. Like I haven't eaten today yet, and it's gone 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't feel too hungry, which is surprising. And so food's getting more erratic as well. It feels like I want to binge, but I'm scared because even with me eating the pizzas the last several weeks, I've kind of done it as spaced out as I can. I've never kind of had one massive meal, like loads of like pizza, for example. But it feels like it's not enough. Like I'm buying it just to sort of keep those cravings down, but it's not enough to stave off the sort of the urges of just binging completely, because it feels like I just lose control, and I'm just scared of doing that. It feels like I'm right there, and if I do that, and it could be just days of eating really, and I've lost some fat. I think it feels like I have all this fasting, and I don't want to just undo all of that in some ways, mostly because of my pre-diabetic numbers. And it feels like it's a constant strain to do that. And yes, like having pizza sort of takes off the edge, and but it doesn't take off the urge to binge. And I think part of that is not just to have the food, but it's just maybe part of that's linked to my current mental difficulties that are probably channeling into other habits that I've done that relieve my stress, and so it's putting pressure on those, I think, as well. So it feels like it's all linked in that way. So yeah, I'm having trouble with food. I did buy some vegetables I can make, like a sort of dry curry, that like an aubergine potato sort of curry that will be good. That can last me a few days. I'm hoping I can cook tomorrow. I'm probably just going to have some pizza tonight, and hopefully it's healthier than just buying the frozen stuff, because I bought like a pack of peppers I can put on there as well. Hopefully load it up with that, which will probably offset some of the unhealthiness, and put some onions and other stuff on there as well. So I'm hoping it just quells the urge to binge, but we'll see how that goes, really. Yeah, okay, I need to get out to the park and try and upload this, because it's going to get dark really soon, I think it's probably about 3:30 now, and I think by 4 it gets quite dark. So even though it seems quite bright outside, it's surprising how the last bit of the day before sunset in these winter days, or coming up to winter days, and it really kind of just gets dark very quickly. So I'm going to continue listening to the audiobook that I've started. So it's quite nice. Maybe I'm going to try and keep that up, like an audiobook, one for me walking around the park, because I listen to music a lot when I'm here, like writing or reading. So maybe it breaks that up a bit, and it gives a bit of variety as well. And it doesn't it's a different type of reading than reading the book. So maybe I can try and do both of those if I'm able to. Okay, I'm gonna get going, and hopefully I can upload this stuff, and